Welcome to A Second Helping with Allison Bartow, a wedding photography podcast with a focus on second shooting. Welcome back to another episode of Save, Delete, Dodge, and Burn, a recap episode where normally I'm recapping a wedding, but this week we are recapping a bat mitzvah, and I had a bar mitzvah somewhat recently, so this won't be too new. This is actually my third mitzvah. It is my second bat mitzvah. It is my second mitzvah with Jackie from Love Shack Photos, and it's also my second bat mitzvah with the party at the Abington Art Center. So the first time I shot a mitzvah was in October of 2021. I was the third shooter, and we were there at the synagogue for the service. And I was given a spot and told that I could not move from there during the service, and a 400 millimeter lens that they had rented that was super, super expensive. So I got the hang of all of the traditions for that. And then we went over to the party at the Abington Art Center. Because it was October, the sun set pretty early, and it also started raining earlier in the day. So when we were there, it was dark and rainy, and you weren't able to see too much outside. The interior of the venue was really nice. I've mentioned it before. It really felt like a wedding. It was beautifully done and awesome. And I think that was one of the reasons that I was so looking forward to shooting with Jackie again recently, because it had just been a really good time. And I'd mentioned it was awesome just seeing the family there, and so excited and taking part in such a nice tradition and just a milestone in their lives. So I learned a lot at the last bar mitzvah as well, shooting with Jackie. And I think I've come a long way from October 21 till now. But I'm looking forward to it. I just feel like I'm bringing an improved skill set to the day and improved knowledge of what's going to go on. But then also the excitement of knowing that, just like with a wedding, you never really know what exactly to expect. So what I can expect, I've already received a really nice agenda from Jackie. So she shared the timeline from the planner, and it has all the relevant time details. But then, like Jackie did last time, she gave me a lot of really good information. So she took the time to personalize it, and also mentioned, like, during certain times, she would probably want me standing next to her, but we'll talk about that. And what I really like is that she gave me feedback from the last time we shot together. So there were just a few like working notes. Some of my flash photos, I was up to like an ISO 3200, and that's higher than what she wants. So I love that she gave me that feedback so that I know. It's just important because some people will just move on to somebody else. So having that information is good because I can easily make that correction. I know why I was doing it. There have been issues with like the focus spot bouncing around a little bit, and with grip and grins, it just seems really ridiculous to have somebody not in focus for such an easy shot. So I've just been shooting at a higher f-stop so that I know there's, less of a chance of having an issue with someone in that shot not being in focus and sharp. As a result of that, I'm not getting as much light as if I was shooting more open. So as cranking up the ISO. So based on her feedback, I know now going in tomorrow, I'm going to keep the ISO lower, and I'm going to shoot with a smaller aperture wide open, so I'm getting more light in. So I really appreciate her feedback. She also had some other notes for me, so I reviewed all of that. I wrote her back acknowledging everything that she'd given me with regards to feedback, because I think it's important if someone's going to take the time to give you constructive feedback of any sort, that you just acknowledge it and kind of take it to heart. I find that it's hard for a lot of people to take feedback or constructive criticism. I know one of my challenges is that as a people pleaser and a perfectionist, my first instinct is kind of to explain what was going on and why I did what I did. And it's really hard, honestly. You just have to wrap your head around the fact that in most cases, it doesn't matter. She really, I kind of said, oh, hey, this is what I was doing. I will make these adjustments so that she understands that I understand. But, I'm not going to go on a long tangent about a bunch of different reasons of this is why I did what I did last time. You just have to take the feedback and say, okay, this is what is important to this person. These are the changes I'm going to make. And the more you're able to just take that feedback, the better it is. One of the challenges with second shooting is that when you're working for different photographers, they're all going to be a little bit different. They're going to have different tolerances for ISO levels. They're going to have different tolerances for f-stops and the focus. So I have some photographers that I work with. They're like, hey, just make sure all the photos are, sharp and in focus. And, so I was playing it a little bit safe. And by playing it safe, I was a little fast and loose with the ISO and ended up in a territory that is too high for what she wants. So I like that I know that now going in. So she gave me that feedback. She also said, hey, let's meet up while we're there. And she's going to show me like her preferred settings for grip and grins, which is great. I love learning and I want to shoot so that it is in line with what she wants. And then also the photos are going to be more consistent throughout the gallery, which is also a big part of the goal. Something else she noticed was that during some of the party dancing towards like the second half of the reception, and I think I mentioned this in that recap, I was doing some experimenting with like shutter drag and just a slower shutter speed. So she said she noticed that and she gave me her settings that she uses, which was really nice, to just take the time to type all that up. So I read that a couple times. I copied it into the notes on my phone. So anytime I see settings for different things, I always copy them into the notes on my phone, and then I make sure I give it a title that's pretty descriptive so that I can go back later and find those very easily. So I have all different people's recommendations for on-camera flash settings, off-camera flash settings, couple different people settings for shutter drag, and just different things. I think I have something in there on sparkler exits. But I just try to save all of that in one accessible place that I can find quickly. So I appreciated that. So I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. There will be some of the same people that were at the last Mitzvah, which is kind of nice. Just that familiarity. And it should be good. The weather should be nice. Today, it got up to like 95. And it was like that 95 when it hasn't been that hot. So it feels even hotter. Just being outside, you just start sweating. Tomorrow looks really nice. It looks like it's going to be cloudy with a high of 73. So I don't know that we're going to have too many photos outside, but it's still nice just knowing that's going to be an overall more comfortable temperature. And I believe I know for the last one, there was like an outdoor tent because it was all pathways that they then tented like the walkways to get there because it was raining so hard. So I'm not sure what that setup will be like tomorrow, if they're going to use still a tented area, but maybe it'll be a little bit more open and it's going to be lighter later. So I'm looking forward to it. And again, shooting with Jackie, I liked shooting with her last time. We didn't have too much of an opportunity to talk because I got there and she was already shooting portraits. And then the night was going on. So she gave me, some info throughout the night. She prepped me really well ahead of time. But again, I really appreciate getting this feedback from my photos from the last one. And then also knowing that we're going to touch base on a few things tomorrow before we start shooting. So I will be checking in tomorrow and I will let you know how everything goes. I am on the turnpike on my way home. It's almost 11 o'clock. We wrapped up. We went until 10. So we wrapped up, packed up, and checked out. It went well. It was so funny how different it was from the last time I was there, which I was expecting and also kind of like, because it's cool to just see how much a place can change depending on how you're doing your event. So I got there a little bit early, like I always like to do, so that I don't get nervous. And everyone that was there was like pretty laid back, like they weren't fully set up yet, but nobody was concerned. So Jackie and I just caught up on some stuff. We chatted about some things. We had a really nice conversation, talked a little bit about the day, and then set up light stands. It was so funny. We walked around to the tent space and I didn't even recognize it at first because we came in from the side. And when I had been there before, we had been, everything had been, like I mentioned, tented. And so there was just like, you couldn't really see where you were going. You were just like following the tent around. So I didn't even recognize their main tented space at first, coming in from the other side. But the tables weren't set up. So normally like tables are set up, and maybe the tablecloths aren't dropped, but nothing was set up yet, but it was fine. Surprisingly, it was fine. So I got to meet Ruby, the bat mitzvah girl, and she was really nice. She had the prettiest smile. She was really cool. Her parents were awesome. So it made for a really great day. So Jackie got some really awesome portraits of her on like the stairway, and then with the chandelier like above that looked really cool. And then there was a really interesting room that had the one wall had like the old paint. So it had like a patina almost, but then like the old paint, and it was like layers, and it was just really cool. So she got some nice portraits there, and then some other family portraits of like grandparents later that I really want to see, because they looked from the back of the camera really cool. And then the interesting thing was the one whole gallery space, there was no artwork on the walls. There weren't any paintings or anything, which was different, because normally I would think if you're running an art center for an event, they would still have art up. I don't know if they were like swapping out installations, but that was just a little bit odd. So they have a sculpture garden, but there's not like a ton of stuff out there. And I guess the family, they weren't crazy about the one sculpture that was out there, but Jackie got some nice pictures in a couple different areas there. The weather was really nice. Yesterday it went up to like 90 something. When I got in my car, it was 101, but today was supposed to have a high of like 73, 75, and it was glorious. There was like cloud cover. People were actually a little bit chilly. It was just so pleasant. There was a nice breeze the whole time. So at the property, you went like down a hill, and then there was an open area for the guests, and then there was a stage. I don't even know what you would call it. From far away, it almost, you thought it was like an amphitheater, or like an amphitheater mixed with like a pavilion, but it was just like a nice large staged space. So they had their service there. It went really well. She did great. I'm always so impressed with these kids that get up in front of so many people and do all of the traditions that are involved with that. So that was great. One of the funny things was that the officiant, who was great, said something along the lines of, and the last thing we'll do, and it's fine however long the ceremony is going to go, but then she said that again for like what felt like another hour. So she made it seem like it was wrapping up, but then there was like something else and something else. There was a really talented musician. He was playing the guitar and singing, and Jackie said he's like the new hot thing on the Mitzvah circuit. So he was really talented. It was great. He was really nice to hear. And then when we were doing family portraits before the ceremony, they went well. We were like moving on to the next thing, and like some cousins showed up late, and we were trying to get them together for a picture. And the one cousin who, I don't know, maybe he's 14, 15, but he like puts his arms around the other cousins, and he had his hands in fists. So he had like fists around them, and we were just nicely trying to say like, oh, hey, like relax your hands. And he was just like defiantly not doing it. I guess there's no other way to defiantly do something other than to not do it. But and then Jackie was like, let's get a couple with everyone smiling. He like would not smile. I think he had braces, so you know how teenagers are when they get their braces. But then like we got him to relax his hands, and then he was like doing something else weird and aggressive. So I think she finally did get like a couple of shots. But I was just like, oh boy, that's a handful. Because normally I have found the kids to be generally pretty respectful and just aware of like the situation and what's expected. So then during the ceremony, those cousins were in the upper corner, and in the other corner, catty corner, were some friends. And I think there were like 2 in the beginning, and then like they were showing up a little bit late.
So I was laughing because they would show up and then they ran out of chairs. So they would take a chair from the row in front of them. So their back row just kept getting longer and the row in front of them kept getting shorter. But they were just typical preteen boys, and they were goofing off and like doing God only knows what to each other. And, you know, his whole chair fell over at one point, and then they're messing with the fans. And so I think we have some funny photos of them, but they were kind of funny. I called them murderers row back there because they were being goofballs. But there was, I swear, at least one time I thought I heard thunder. At least once I felt like a couple of raindrops. And I mean, the wind picked up, the clouds rolled in. Like, I really thought there was no way we were wrapping that up or even the day without getting rain. And it completely held off. And like I said, I was totally comfortable, which was just nice. And Ruby had like a portion during the ceremony where she got really emotional. So I think those are going to be nice pictures because it was just a really touching moment, which is always nice to see. And then cocktail hour. This was definitely a more scaled back version of a mitzvah than what the other two had been, which is nice because sometimes it gets to the point where it feels a little excessive. It's not my money, so be it. But this just seemed nice. It seemed a little bit more along the lines of like a high-end kid party. And the kids had a lot of fun. So the guests, we feel like it was I felt like it was around like 110, 125, whereas the last one was like 250 people. So there was at least room to move around. When I'd previously been at this venue, the tables were so close together and they had elevated hanging floral pieces. So it just felt like it was really difficult to move around, and you just felt like you were limited in the places that you could shoot from. So this was nice. They just had rounds, like eight person rounds, and you could move all throughout the space. The DJ was very nice and very accommodating, but I laughed a little bit because the last mitzvah, they were like a well-oiled machine. And Jackie was like, I'm not impressed with these guys. And I was like, oh, really? So she obviously has seen everything. And she hadn't been super impressed with those guys, but I was. So this guy was not even on the level of the last guys. And so we were kind of laughing because it was just like things were taking a little bit longer than they should have. And it was just him and then like two dancing girls. Whereas last time it felt like it was a whole dance troupe and like all these hype girls and all of it. But this was fun. It was perfect for like the number of kids that were there, and they had a good time. The pizza was good. It was delicious. They were, I'm going to mispronounce it, pizza vetri. So they were, had their truck and they were making pizza on site. And then they did like waffles and ice cream at the end and a candy bar and the photo booth, and all the kids had fun. And then because it was a little bit more, I would say, of a manageable night, I felt like Jackie and I had some chances to talk during the evening. So she was super helpful and just like explaining different things, and we talked through some stuff. So that's nice because in a lot of instances when it's really busy, the primary is like they have their job to do, and it takes longer to stop and tell someone what you need than to just do it yourself. So it's nice when it's a little bit slower and you're able to have a little bit more communication. So that was that. I checked in with my husband, and it seems as though there is a rather large plumbing issue with some water leaking at my house. So I'll see what's going on with that when I get home. The sad realization I had once I started driving was it sounds like I'm not going to be able to take a shower when I get home, which will be devastating. So that's one of the highlights of the end of an evening of shooting. So we'll see. But yeah, that was it. The family was great. I was mindful of my ISO. I kept it 1600 and below most of the evening. I shot with a much wider open aperture, So I am going to go through the photos, and I'm hoping I don't have missed focus because of that. Like I said before, I was like increasing the aperture just so it felt safer. But obviously opening it up, I was able to get more light in there and be able to shoot at a lower ISO. So hopefully that's good. The one thing that makes me crazy with the off-camera and on-camera flash when you're shooting and you're fully in manual mode is I'll forget, like when I'll be shooting people on the dance floor and then I'll turn to shoot like something close up or people at a table, and I'll take like 3 pictures, and then like as I turn to walk away, I look and they're completely overexposed. So I just have to remind myself that when I'm on manual, I've got to dial back that on-camera flash and decrease the power. I have tried shooting TTL, but it messes up the off-camera flashes, and so it's like the second and third ones aren't putting out enough power. So I'm doing all manual, but I'm just forgetting when I like spin and I'm doing something close up, and then it's like completely washed out. And then the other thing, the DJ was really great. He had like some lights that were just shining straight out into us. So we did ask him if he could turn those off when they were doing the lighting of the candle tradition and then like the speeches, because it was just really messing with us. And he was really great with that. And then they did the video montage, and that was sweet. And then afterwards they went back to dancing, and I was like, oh, I'm going to mess around with a little bit of shutter drag. And so I adjusted all my settings. They went to shoot, and I realized that all of the cafe lights that were strung in the tent that looked so pretty were off. And so I think they turned them off maybe for when they were playing the video montage. So that kind of stunk, because then they weren't in any of the pictures for the rest of the evening, but there was only like 20 minutes left. So it wasn't a big deal. Like you weren't going to bother find someone to turn them back on. So that was it with regards to like flash and lighting. But it was like easy enough to light. It was a white tent. It had like purple uplighting. So that was good for bouncing flash. And I think that's it. So I'm going to go home and see what's going on with the water situation at my house. And then I will download the photos tomorrow and kind of go through them and see how they turned out. All right.
Okay, I'm back. I downloaded the photos and I took 2,477 photos, which came out to 337 an hour, which is actually more than I thought it was going to be, because the start of the day, I wasn't taking as many photos. But I guess throughout the ceremony and then the reception definitely had a lot per hour going on. So that's where I came in at. Side note, my one memory card rolled over, like it hit $99.99. So it rolled over and started back to 1. And I was looking at the photos today, and luckily I realized that the folder of raw images had less than I thought was going to be there. So I looked at the folder that had the JPEG images, and it was a difference of 286. So I scrolled through and I figured out that the folder with the RAWs is missing the 286 images from when the memory card turned over. So it's something I have to really be mindful of, just to make sure. Normally I'm shooting 2 cards, so I download JPEG and RAW from one card, JPEG and RAW from the other, and that's it. So 4 downloads. In this case, it was 6, and apparently I'm missing one of those. So images are still on the cards. I'm going to go back just so I can make sure I have the folder with all the RAW files in there. So I definitely have to go through and look at the images twice, because the first time I go through, I'm never super happy. I'm just still seeing soft focus, which is a nice way to say not where I want the focus in a lot of images, particularly during the dancing portion, but there are still some during other parts of the day where I just don't understand it. When I had a regular DSLR, that was so rare that would happen. So it's still frustrating. I'm still working on the different focus modes, and I was using different ones, and I'm having better success with it. But still not to the degree that I feel that I should be. So working on that. And then I'm also going to dig in more on how to get the most out of the Z6 II when focusing in low light, because I know everyone complains about that, but there are things I can be doing, I think, in addition. So there's that. Some things that I forgot during the recap was the one cousin, our early teen, pre-tween cousin. At one point during the candle lighting ceremony, we hear this huge crash and we look back and the cousin's table had just fallen over. So we're not sure exactly what happened there, but that was loud and messy. Everyone was fine. And then Grandma Click Click, that is her name. And I feel like I did not give her enough credit in my initial recap. She was a force of nature. She was fantastic. When we first met her, it was outside for family portraits. And she had like a Poochie inspired dress on and this beautiful silver hair. And she said she needed to get her pictures done right away because her hair was going to be frizzy in like 10 minutes. By the way, I don't think it ever got frizzy. She looked great all night. But oh my goodness, she was dancing all night long. And I'm talking like dancing, like her knees. I was like, how are her knees in such great shape? Maybe she has new knees. Maybe she's had a replacement. But she was awesome. One of the areas I'm bummed about is when we'd moved, we were in one area shooting, moved into the tent at one point, and I was still adjusting all of my flash settings and everything. And Grandma Click Click was hula hooping, like around her neck, everywhere, laughing. So I was shooting it and trying to adjust as I went. And I'm just bummed because I can see images that would be good that just aren't lit well enough. So I have some towards the end because she had moved over to another area. I had my flash kind of dialed in, but then she was closer to me and I feel like she's cropped a little bit too tight. So there's still some really great images. Those are more of a profile view of her, but she was so funny. I'm overall happy with a lot of the ceremony images. I feel like I've got some good images from the crowd as well, just the family members and their emotions, and then some nice crowd shots overall. I was relatively low the whole time with my aperture, and looking back, I probably should have done just a few with like a higher aperture to try to get like the whole scene. I'm never really excited about like a really wide angle shot because I just feel like there's always elements that are distracting or unappealing in the image. So I try to do some from the back to get like Ruby and the efficient then with like the crowd, but the angle wasn't great for that. So I was able to get like the building in the background and her, but it wasn't really as the look that I was going for. It's not a great image. So that went well. And again, still there's like a few in there that are sharp, focused, completely out of focus, back to sharp and focus. So I don't know if that camera is like thinking and trying too hard and just picking other things. It's just annoying when you're going through the images. I shot in manual all night. I've gotten a lot more comfortable just shooting in manual. I was super mindful of the ISO because if Jackie had not said something, I know I would have had times where I was up to, 2400, 3200 easily. So I kept it, 1000, 1600 all night. What else? The table flipping, the hula hooping. Everyone was pretty great. Then we had entrances are becoming the bane of my existence. So I have a few good ones, but just there's still so many that are not in focus. So I just, between the lighting and all of that, I think one of the tricky parts with this event was that we were in the tent, which was nice. So there was natural light coming in from three sides, but the sun was then setting. So you have to be mindful to like keep increasing your flash power. But then also the challenge was when you would turn, you went from having like some additional light coming in to no light. So you have to keep toggling that flash power back and forth. So I think that was kind of a challenge because it wasn't able to be consistent. I think I would have liked to have put a third light in the back corner so that as it got darker, there would have been just a third flash so that there would have been two in the back corners, just providing a little bit more light coming in, because I don't like to do really high powered on camera flash because I think that ends up just being like overpowering and just looking like a lot of on camera flash. But I think that may have helped. And I think too, for the entrances at the time, I was like, I didn't have time to run and grab it. So if I just had it set up there, it would have been good. But when you're setting up light stands, you're always worried about taking up too much space and being in the way and having something get knocked over because you're just in the way. So probably moving forward, be safe and just set up that third flash so that it's there. Ruby was so photogenic, super sweet. She did great. And then I would say I got some like photos of like the pizza truck that was off doing their baking. So just some storytelling images, and I didn't go crazy with that. So I feel like I got just enough of that. I did get some wide angle shots of the venue once the sun had set. So I did those at different exposures just so that hopefully Jackie has something in there that she wants, because some of them look nice, but then if you went more underexposed, you could see all of the purple uplighting. So that was nice, but then it's a pretty dark image because I was just using ambient light, no flash for that. And then, yeah, it was great working with Jackie, just feedback throughout the night, talking about everything, working on everything. I thought that the hora and the dancing part was going to be a little bit maybe easier than the last time because it was fewer people. What I realized the challenge was the dancing area was smaller. So everybody kind of converged in there. So it was tighter. So it actually ended up being a little bit more difficult. We did the hora dancing in the chairlift twice. And I think my images are better the first time that she went up. And I don't think Jackie loved what she was getting, and she had the DJ do it again. So hopefully she has really good images from the second time. I did find that most of those were in focus. Every now and then there would be a limb in front of the camera between that dancing and just the regular dancing with everyone on the ground. Right after that, the limb that would go, the camera just loves to jump focus to whatever is closest to the lens, but it wasn't horrible. The challenge with the reception is you're just shooting so much because just with people blinking and everything else. So it's like, you're going to have garbage and you're going to have to delete stuff. And then when you mix in some that are just not in focus, you feel like you're going to have to cull out so many of the images. So that's where it's just a little bit frustrating or disheartening. And then I'm thinking, oh God, the person I shot for, I hope they're not disappointed because it's like trash, trash, trash. Oh, here's a good one. So I think going through them a second time, it is a little bit more encouraging because then I feel like I'm more focused on what some of the good images are rather than just like what was a disappointment. Because I feel like in the moment, everything looks like it's, in focus in the viewfinder and you feel like you're locked on, but it's moving around. So I just think that the low light dancing situation is going to always be an area that can be improved upon. And then that was, I feel like pretty much it. The entrances with extra light. There was a little bit of motion blur on some that wasn't too intentional, but it was okay. But then they did the limbo, and looking back, there's just like a little bit too much blur. And I feel like I should have powered up that flash for getting down low on the floor, but there are a few good ones. It's one of those things that's just like, it's going to be really awkward in so many bad angles that you have to shoot a lot to get like some keepers. But I think there were a few in there. So for my final recap, the things that went really well, I would say I really enjoyed working with Jackie again. She's very talented and she's also really nice and has a good personality. So she's fun to shoot with, in addition to being helpful and informative and being able to chat about photography. I think she got some really great portraits at the very beginning of the day. I'm excited to see those. I think that we have some really nice candid moments and photos throughout the ceremony. And we also have some fun party dancing pictures. I think that overall, we got everything that we were supposed to get. So there wasn't that feeling at the end of the night like, oh, shoot, we needed to get X and we didn't get it. So everything went smooth that way. And again, the family and everybody was really great to work with. Things that didn't go well, I would say just the lighting with the tent and, as the natural light was getting darker, just amping up the flash power. And speaking of that, earlier on, I mentioned that when shooting TTL on the on-camera flash, I mistakenly said that it messes up the off-camera flash. That isn't what I meant. I find that the flash power of the on-camera flash gets diminished. So there's something with the recycling time, and I think the TTL is picking up the off-camera flashes, so I'm not getting the output that I need from it. So it ends up looking like you're having a recycling problem, but I think it's the TTL. So there's probably something in settings that I need to mess with. So I'll look into that. But I realized that I said it wrong earlier. But I think the biggest challenge was just constantly navigating that changing light and the direction of the light and just being nimble with that. And again, I feel like I have to find the right balance between keeping the ISO down and then having enough of an open aperture to allow in light, but also help me with the focusing. So that would be probably one of the low lights, no pun intended, one of the downsides. And I think that was it. Things that I want to do more of. I need to remember to put in the earplugs that I always bring and always have with me. I just keep forgetting them. So I think I just have to realize that when I walk into a dance floor and see a DJ, I just need to put them in. I move them from my rolling camera bag into the bag that I always have on my shoulder. So I just literally all night didn't think about it once. So I need to start remembering to do that. And then again, I had mentioned earlier, I need to just set up that third flash. I'd rather just have the light stand there. It's going to be a lot easier to break something down and move it out of the way. If it's in the way, then need it and need to go get it and try to set it up. Navigating through guests with a light stand, that's all a nightmare. So I think I'm better off just being prepared for it earlier on. And things that I want, additionally more of, looking back, I feel like there were a couple of opportunities with the really nice cafe lights that they had in the tent. That would have been a good opportunity to do like a reflection shot with a mirror to, reflect those lights with, Ruby, whether it was with her parents' speeches or some of the dancing. So I feel like that was a missed opportunity. That would have been the good spot for that, I think. And then things to do less of, I think I have to be mindful of not just going into autopilot mode. So I have to do less of just being like, I have to be taking photos the whole time. I've mentioned this before, but looking back, as Chuck Iannarino says, slow down, stop down, sit down. I think if I just take like a breather, kind of analyze the situation a little bit more. I do it to an extent, but not enough. Because looking back, I'm like, that was like hours of dancing and, all this other stuff going on. But just taking the time to see if there's another more creative angle. So something that's going to be more complementary to the gallery that Jackie's putting together. So that's something I just need to be mindful of, not to be in like autopilot, second shooter, photo mode. Because then I feel like I'm getting more snapshots than actually creating photographs. So that is my final recap on the day. I am going to include in the show notes Jackie's website and her Instagram so that you can check her out because she does amazing photography and beautiful mitzvah work. So I'll put that in the show notes. And that's it. Thanks. I'll talk to you later.